Good evening and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen Workshop. It is February 27th, 2020. It is 6:30. Call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. The prayer next Thursday will be by Alderman Church. The Pledge of Allegiance by Alderman No. Should all have a copy of the minutes for you to review from the February 4th, 2020 regular meeting. On Thursday night, we will have a certificate of appreciation for BH Homes Construction. And we will have a few here tonight. We're going to start off with the pinning ceremony. Chief Clark.
We want to recognize our new firefighters here in the city, and by doing that, we would like to provide a firefighter's oath and then allow their family or friends to pin them, being new firefighters. So Josiah and Tim here. There he is. Stand up here. All right. You're going to raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Josiah Kennedy,
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of office of firefighter
the duty of the office of firefighter
for the city of Laverne and the state of Tennessee,
for the city of Vergne and the state of Tennessee,
and will,
and will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
preserve,
preserve,
protect, and provide the services
protect, and provide the services
of my position to the city of Laverne
of my position to the city of Laverne
and all who travel through.
and all who travel through.
I furthermore promise
I furthermore promise
to conduct myself in a professional manner
to conduct myself in a professional manner,
and adhere to all policies and procedures
to adhere to all policies and procedures
of the Laverne Fire Department
of the Laverne Fire Department
and the city of Laverne.
and the city of Laverne.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. Would you like to come up and pin? Do you have?
My mom's late, so she ain't here yet.
All right. We can do that.
Sounds good.
So once we'll have you sign this and notarize, and then we'll be giving this back to you. Okay? Okay. These guys actually have gone through an orientation. They started approximately in December. We've put them through state checkoffs such as that, and also other duties, and they have performed well. And this triggers our badge pinning. So give these guys a round of applause, please.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Johnny.
Next, we will have a presentation by the Town of Smyrna Natural Gas Public Awareness Program.
Mayor, thank you for having us again. Appreciate y'all allowing us to come talk to you about Smyrna Natural Gas and what we do with respect to pipeline safety. We're a natural gas distribution system, and you may recall, as a part of being a natural gas distribution system, the federal government requires that we have a public awareness program. Within that public awareness program, what we do is we speak with a lot of different stakeholders, school systems, elected officials, the general public, even non-customers. In fact, I'll tell you a little something that we did relative to our non-customers this past year to help get this message out. But really appreciate you all allowing us to come speak to you at your workshop or your council meeting as we do to ours, because your meetings are broadcast. And that also helps us get the message out to individuals who might not otherwise receive it through the mail or by attending a public awareness event. So we just want to say thank you for that. My boss is the Director of Utilities, Mike Strange. He sends his regrets Unfortunately, our workshop is also on the same night as your workshop, so he couldn't be here tonight. No matter how hard we spread, how thin we spread him, we can't make him into two people. But he just want to let you know he appreciates you letting us come. The first slide here, I just wanted you to see, this is our natural gas department building. It's on G Street in Smyrna. Every morning, about 9 gentlemen come into this building, about 7:30 or so. They have their coffee, they have their safety meeting, and the next thing you know, they're out in the field providing the services that are requested of them, checking for leaks, repairing lines that might have been busted, providing services, and a variety of other tasks that I'm going to talk about down the line. Glenn, if you will, the next slide, please. Give you a little bit of background about our system. We are the winner of the 2018 and 2019 SOAR Award, and SOAR stands for System Operational Achievement Recognition. It is awarded by the American Public Gas Association. We've received that 2 times, and this year we're going for the gold. It is basically a series of questions and information that you have to provide in 4 different categories. We've got one category where we keep coming up just a little bit short, and it gives us some guidance as to where we need to improve. Hopefully we've crossed that threshold this year and we're going to reach the gold level. You just about have to have a score of 100% in order to get that. So we keep trying. Some facts about our system. We now have 274 miles of main line. We have 10,975 customers. 1,964 of those are in Laverne. I think that number may be old. I think I should have freshened that up this year. About 80% of our system is polyethylene pipe. And this is what I'm referring to when I say polyethylene pipe. And I'll talk to you a little bit more later on about how this got damaged. 92% of our customers are served by that polyethylene pipe. We had 16 hits to our system in 2018. Fortunately, that is down from 20 hits in 2017. We just finished our report for 2019, and I didn't have time to update that figure before I came here tonight. That just went into the federal government just today. But obviously, we're moving in the right direction. That's a part of our public awareness program, to work with excavators and individuals to make sure that they don't make contact with our line when they shouldn't be. We purchased 2.8 billion cubic feet of gas in 2018. So, next slide, please. Since 1990, we, being Smyrna, have grown by more than 4,200 customers. The town of Smyrna increased from 21 square miles to 32 square miles. As I recall, Laverne has 25.1 square miles. I notice you probably got some more annexations and things that are happening here. So y'all are growing as well. Our population, the last census we had, we came in at 47,521. As I understand it, y'all did a special census in 2017, and y'all came in at 35,717. Kudos to y'all for doing that. I've actually done one myself in 2003, and that's a very good move on the part of a municipal government to do those censuses as frequently as you can. Smyrna housing permits, 7,309 since 2000. That is just single-family residence. It's residential, I should say. I didn't include anything relative to industry, businesses, things of that nature. The last number that I had from y'all on housing permits was 5,152. I suspect that's probably gone up quite a bit since then too. What are the things we do for our public awareness program and in order to prevent damage to our pipeline system? Every year we do a leak survey. If you happen to be driving through Smyrna and you see a couple gentlemen from that building that I mentioned earlier riding around on a golf cart, one of them's sticking a little wand in the ground and the other one's got something that looks like a radar gun that he's pointing up in the air. I promise you they're not playing games. One of them's not trying to be a Star Wars character and the other one's not trying to be Harry Potter. Those are highly sophisticated pieces of equipment that help us pick up on leaks. We do those leak surveys and we break it out by territory. So the gentleman will do a business district, residential district, things of that nature every year. There's no way we can do the whole territory every year. So they do those leak surveys, we find the things that need to be repaired, and we repair them immediately. We don't carry leaks, as the phrase is. We also have to do cathodic protection surveys. As I mentioned, not all of our system is polyethylene. So the portion that is steel, and everybody knows if you put steel in the ground, the dirt and the air and the moisture, it's going to rust. unless you run an electric charge along that pipe. That's called the cathodic protection. So every year we have to go out and test that cathodic protection to make sure that it's working, that it's providing the electrical charge that it should be. If there are breaks in the system, we've got to repair those. We go around and we paint the meters, business meters, commercial, residential meters, everything. Again, we can't do the whole system in 1 year, so we break it out by territories. Regulator station inspections. When the natural gas comes into our distribution system, it's coming in at a very high pressure from our source provider, which is Enbridge. And when that comes in, we have to reduce it down so that it can be used for your appliances, for your business, and so forth. So it goes into regulator stations. Those same two gentlemen that I mentioned earlier that do leak surveys, they check those regulator stations on a regular basis, and they have to document that they're doing that. We have to pass an inspection every year, and that's one of the things that they have to document. So next slide. Some other things we do. We are members of Tennessee 811. In fact, we are very active with Tennessee 811. It is supported by member utilities such as Smyrna. And Smyrna, you may recall, provides water, sewer, and natural gas. Middle Tennessee Electric belongs. Bell South belongs, or AT&T, I should say now. I'm dating myself. AT&T, Laverne, of course, belongs, and Piedmont, just up the street. Other area utilities all belong. The utilities in the area in which you will be digging will be marked. All you have to do is go out there with some white spray paint and indicate where you're going to be operating. That utility operator will come out there and highlight where there's telecom, where there's gas, where there's water, where there's sewer, so that you don't hit those facilities when you're doing your digging. It's free. It protects your underground utilities. It's going to protect your property, and it can possibly protect your life. Natural gas isn't the only thing that can cause a disruption and cause somebody to get hurt. You could hit a high-pressure water main or sewer main, and you can cause a great deal of damage to yourself or to property. So next slide, please. What I want to show you right here, I passed out some articles, and you have those in front of you, and they will track along with some videos that I'm going to show you here in just a minute. The first video, give me just a minute, I've got to put my spectacles on here. The first video is from a shopping center in Maryland. And you'll notice when you read it, it says that no one was reported injured. I find that kind of surprising, but they said nobody was injured. The other thing that it says in about the third paragraph was that the fire department was dispatched for a fire alarm. I suspect that it might have actually been a CO alarm, carbon monoxide. But ultimately, you'll see what happened when they arrived and when they were clearing the scene. They had actually evacuated the shopping center, fortunately. We've got the lights on so you can't see it very well, but there were a couple individuals approaching the doorway when that explosion happened. That's why I say, if you will, pause it right there, Glenn. That's why I say I was surprised that nobody actually got hurt from that glass and debris that was flying. The next one I want to show you, it's an incident where a vehicle was driven into a home, okay? And in that situation, the car, of course, hit a gas line. It says it hit the primary gas line. It's irrelevant whether it's primary gas line or it's going to an appliance or whatever, but they hit a gas line, and of course the natural gas is building up into the home. It says there were 3 people who were injured inside the home. All are expected to recover. One of the officers on the scene did have to go to the hospital for treatment. But when you take a look at this, I want you to notice the elements that are available that are there in the premises, and I'll talk about it when it's finished. If you will, go ahead, Glenn. This was from a couple different angles. That's the driver of the car right there. Okay, if you'll pause that. If you remember the basic elements of the fire triangle, We've always got air, the natural gas released, and then something caused an ignition, something caused a spark. It could have been the heat from the vehicle engine, but another element that was present was the young man was talking on his phone. When we get a call about a possible odor, we instruct those individuals not to hang up the phone because it can cause a spark. So that's just a perfect example of all the elements of a fire triangle coming together and causing an explosion. The last one that I want to show you, this one ultimately resulted in a $25,000 fine, and it also resulted in a death, which I suspect probably resulted in some more legal action beyond that. It happened in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. You hear the word Sun Prairie, you think it's going to be a town in California, but it was actually in Wisconsin. And in this situation, again, there were a lot of first responders on the scene trying to resolve where the leak was coming from, and then ultimately the explosion happened. In this particular situation, the contractor was doing what we call directional boring. He was digging under the ground, and he hit a line. This is why I wanted to show you this. This is what can happen when you don't participate in Tennessee 811 and you don't have the line marked properly. This line was feeding this way, and the directional bore went underneath it and made that break in the line. Fortunately for us, there wasn't an explosion, there wasn't anything major that happened, except for the fact that this line fed a nursing home. We were able to make the repairs within a couple hours, but obviously it could have been a lot worse because you've got patients in there, and it was the dead of winter. It wasn't in the springtime. So this could have been an awful lot worse for the individuals who were served by this line, as well as the contractors who struck it. But go ahead and start this one if you will, Glenn. Those folks were on the perimeter. They were very lucky. However, as you read in the article, obviously there were other individuals that were in close proximity. And you can see the picture of the article that I handed out to you. The roof of those buildings that was just completely, eviscerated. It was just blown away. So that's what happens when you don't do the right things. And again, that fire triangle comes together and it causes an explosion. Individuals are harmed, hurt, property damage is incurred. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide here. There we go. How do you know if you've got a leak? This is what we try to get across through the public awareness program. You've got the typical rotten egg smell. Well, guess what? That is not natural. Natural gas does not have a smell built into it. It's something that we add to it. It's called mercaptan. We as a distribution system are required to do that. But folks should also know that a major transmission line might not have mercaptan in it. It all depends upon where that transmission line is going through. If it's going through a highly populated area, they are required to have it. On the other hand, you could be between here and Timbuktu out in the country, and that transmission line does not have mercaptan in it. So folks need to be aware of that. If you smell that smell, you have the possibility of a leak. You might have hissing or blowing. As I mentioned, natural gas comes in at high pressure. So if a contractor strikes a line, they sometimes hear the hissing and blowing. Unfortunately, they shut down immediately and they step away from their equipment and they give us a phone call. If you're digging with tools and you make contact and you hear hissing and blowing, same thing. Put your shovel down, walk away. Dead vegetation. Natural gas and Mother Nature don't go together. They're not intended to make your garden grow. It will kill things. Bubbling water on the ground. Again, it's under pressure, so it's going to cause the water to bubble. Frost on top of the ground. I really don't quite know how to explain this one. Nobody's ever made it clear to me, but the thing is, if you're out in July and you see a patch of grass that has frost on it, that's not right. So give us a phone call. We'll come out and do an investigation for you and see if it happens to be a part of our distribution system. We'll go ahead and go to the next one. What do? We want you to call 615-355-5742 Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, and that line is answered by an individual. It's not an automated line. If it's after 4:30 or if it's on holidays or weekends, the best thing to do is to call 911. An awful lot of times folks will call 911 to begin with anyway, and the dispatch will route it to us. In y'all's case, typically when they call 911, your fire department is dispatched and we're dispatched. Want to commend your department. They have been on calls with us many, many times, and they're very supportive, and we want to say thank you for that. When you make the call, you want to do it from a safe distance. Remember the fellow that was out there with the cell phone after the car went into the building? That was not good. He needed to be across the street. We still can't say that cell phones are intrinsically safe. Clear the area immediately. Don't dilly-dally around. Don't worry about gathering up your possessions. Get on out of the way. If you call from a landline, and that often happens to us when somebody's calling from a business, they're typically at a desk or they're in a shop or they're in a business, we tell them, don't hang this phone up, just set it down, okay? Again, we don't want to spark. Don't flip any switches, don't start any vehicles. I always tell people, if you've got a classic Corvette in the garage, leave it alone. You start it up to get it out of there, it's not going to be there and you're not going to be there. Let us take care of where the leak is. Don't open the garage door and don't open the windows. An awful lot of times folks think that because the natural gas is in there, it's their obligation to vent the area. Let us take care of that. Don't worry about trying to vent the area. Just get away from it. That's the best thing to do. Next slide. We like our public awareness events, and these are some of the things that we do every year. We participate in our Easter egg hunt. We've also been doing a safety expo that our fire department puts on at the Smyrna Event Center. And that's been really good. We have an awful lot of interaction with the people one-on-one there. We participate in our fireworks celebration. We're always at our Halloween in the park. Speaking engagements, if you have a group that you'd like for myself or Director Strange to speak to, please give me a call, send me an email. We've spoken to Rotary clubs, senior citizens groups. We love to go and talk about this. We have a United Way golf scramble that's been happening every year. We've been doing that. Last year, we participated in the Jeff Coos Memorial Run, which was a nighttime event. This past fall, I was fortunate. I was put on a committee for the first annual Tennessee 811 Excavator Safety Day. And we held that event over in the Williamson County Ag Expo. And we invited participants from the 8 surrounding counties. We had, I believe it was 421 people that showed up to that event. And it was excavators, utilities, municipal officials. It was a great opportunity for us to talk to them about natural gas and excavation safety. All right. I'm also very fortunate. We have a municipal channel in Smyrna, and if y'all have a need for any information from us, be more than happy to work with y'all on that. But we broadcast some spots on there about natural gas and what to do. Radio spots. I mentioned that we're part of, I did not mention this, excuse me. I'm very active with the Tennessee Gas Association, and the Tennessee Gas Association sponsors spots on the radio and the television. You've probably heard them. Talks about what to do if you hear hissing and blowing and things of that nature. And then the final tagline is John Ward's voice. He had retired for many years, and they said something to him about, getting they said, well, do you want to continue? No, excuse me. He said to the TGA, I will continue to do this as long as I'm alive. And we still use his voice even though he's no longer with us. But he did not want to give it up. He was one of the founding members of the TGA. So we're very proud to have his voice on there. I mentioned non-customers. The last 2 years, what we did was a mail out to individuals who are not our customers, but are within 300 feet of our distribution system. The Tennessee Public Utility Commission asked us how we were reaching out to that stakeholder group. And honestly, it was one of the most difficult challenges that I ever found, but I connected with an organization that was able to compile the data and send it out. So we got the information out to our non-customers as well. And of course, we have our town website. We have information on there, and that's very helpful. I always close with this. And it might seem kind of cliche, but if you see something, say something. And the reason we say this is it is your system. It's providing a service that you need to your residents, to your home. And if you speak up, we can come and address the problem. So that way we can all protect it and we can all protect each other. It's just what it's all about. So, Mayor, Alderman, appreciate it. Stand ready for any questions that you might have.
Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, thank you, Bruce. I did that in Smyrna as well. I appreciate that. You'll notice another handout that I gave you, of course, was a survey. As I mentioned, the federal government requires us to do this kind of stuff, and if we don't document it, it didn't happen. But again, that's why I like doing it on television. I can at least show that. But if you'll fill those surveys out and get them back to Bruce, I sure would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. Thursday night, we will have departmental reports. Then moving on to old business. Second reading ordinance 2020-02, an ordinance to amend Title II, Chapter 3, Section 2-301 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the membership of the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. Again, as we discussed last month, this is just updating the language, excuse me, there from it saying Rutherford County Executive, which the county no longer has, to Rutherford County Mayor, which is the terminology that's used now. Any questions? Moving on to the consent agenda. First item, approve city bids and purchases recommended. Miss Felicia.
Good evening. As we all know, we did put some money in the budget for a roof for City Hall. Not quite enough. We only put $65,000 in there, and the bid came back at $125,500. I have no problem bidding it, but I spoke with several vendors, and I only got one response when we did it. I had Bruce give me 20 years ago when we did it in 1998, and it was $30,000 for the roof. So I guess prices, they like their prices. I don't know, but
20 years makes a difference.
makes quite a bit of difference with some things. But anyway, I'm presenting it because it would require a budget amendment. And however, if anyone has any questions and feels, we worked with,
Is that something that we can possibly rebid it?
we could rebid it, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I really think that we would get the same thing, because I talked to some and they said, what are you guessing? And I'm like, no more than 100,000? I mean, I was giving them a little bit more leeway, but one company came in with an unusual type roof, and I read the specs, and it was nothing like what we spec'd. We spec'd asphalt. It was a rubberized type roof. It might outlast the building, honestly, the way that I read the specs, but I would dare say that it would be a whole lot more expensive than $125,000 for that type of roof.
So what's that a square foot?
Oh, gosh, we're looking at a 10,000 square foot roof. But you're also looking at, because I had one person send me a picture and said, which part of the roof do you want rebid? David laughs because he says I called him an idiot, but there's like 5 sections or 6 sections of this roof, so that's part of your problem. It's not like you're just putting one roof out like you did at police department. They're putting separate sections out. That's a lot more work. We're also looking at all the metal around the roof is rusted, so it's all gotta be replaced. We've got some of the downspouts that have gotta be replaced. I mean, you're looking at 20 years. And I can tell you that I'm surprised in the last few months that we haven't had leaking on the outside of this boardroom wall, because it used to run down that wall bad. It ran down it.
So with all the rain-
And right outside here, it would run down bad. We do have some spots where I can tell it's leaked. But we've done a lot of patching over the last few years.
So with all the rain that's came through this year, it's really above average. Would it be acceptable for us to put it out for bid for 30 more days just to see if we get a hit? Or is it something that's so detrimental that we have to do it, now and not focus on that $165,000 range.
I'm gonna leave that to y'all because in all honesty, I don't see the price coming down. When I do a bid, the price is locked for 45 days.
So this was the lowest bid out of three people?
It was
you
the
said?
only bid.
Oh,
I talked to several people, but when they said, well, what are you thinking? I'm like, maybe 100,000? They didn't even respond to my bid.
where are these people at? Where they located?
One was, they were all local.
They're all
I
local?
think they were all pretty local.
Is it standard for us to give them a number like that?
A lot of times your companies that put it out there will call and ask what's your estimate. So sometimes you give them an estimate. I normally don't give them an estimate. I just had them flat out say, how much do you think it'll be? And I'm like, maybe 100,000. And I was going low because I'd already been told it would probably be at least 110,000.
And all that stuff you mentioned a while ago, the downspouts and everything, all that's included?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the whole list, if you read it, everything is included.
I bet you're aggravated. One bid.
One complete, I'm used to
know.
saving money. I don't
I
like
know,
it to go over what I want it to go over. But
So David, with you doing the maintenance, will the city hall survive 30 days to bid this out again?
I'm gonna be honest with you, each building we have has issues. I'd hate to say it'll survive 30 days. I'm kind of like you. I was expecting to get a call every morning that we had massive leaks here. Baker Roofing, we've had a good history with them. They did the PD roof. Yeah, you could put it back out, but like she said, I don't think you're gonna get any other bites on it.
That was my next question. We have had dealings with them.
Well, and I'd hate to keep putting it off, and like you said, that's totally up to you guys. Eventually, it's gonna have to be taken care of, because we wanna be proactive instead of reactive. That's kind of what we ran into with the PD. We were having so many leaks, we couldn't track them down, then we didn't have a choice, so we were scrambling, praying that we didn't get a big rainstorm in the IT room. We definitely don't want that to happen here. Years ago, Bruce had water running down the back of his wall. We were able to stop that. But we're not roofers by trade, so we can only do so much.
you're looking at least $14 a square foot.
Has your roof had any problems, Chief, since they did yours?
We've had problems with leaking.
Since they did it?
I had one 2 weeks ago that some of the flashing had pulled away from the sidewall, and they came back out and repaired that. So they're pretty responsive. If we have any issues, they're responsive.
Good luck.
So I guess the average is between $9 and $14 a square foot. I mean, if you just look at commercial,
I haven't done a roof before, if you want the truth.
I mean, commercial bidding is, I guess 14 is a little high square foot. It's usually around between 9 and 12, if you agree. I just think it's high, but it's whatever. But if you say we have to have a roof within the next 30 days, then we have to do it.
Well, I
If
didn't say
can-
we had to have one in the next 30 days. I mean, it's imperative that we are gonna have a new roof on this building if we plan on keeping it. The time frame is totally up to you guys. She could put it back out for bid, and if you don't like that bid, then she could put it back out again. But somewhere down the line, we're gonna have to address the condition that our buildings are in and quit putting it off. I think that's what we've got into now. The ball's been pushed down the hill. It's time we gotta fix it somewhere.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
And not just City Hall, we're talking all buildings.
We just don't want to get, if we budgeted $60,000, we definitely threw a number out there that wasn't enough.
But I think that number may have been based kind of on the PD roof, but this is a totally different animal here, so you've got 5 or 6 different elevations, a whole lot more penetrations than you did at the PD. That was pretty much one flat shot, where they're gonna have to deal at least 3 different levels here.
Yeah, it would be the board's decision, but I personally, as counsel to the citizens, I would like to put it back out for bid. If it's going to slow it down 30 days, we're still going to get it done, but if it didn't leak with all that rain that we just had this quarter, I think the 30 more days, it would, $165 is, it's pretty high. $165,000, I'm sorry.
It's 125.
125.
Oh, 125? Okay.
It's tight.
Thought you said 65.
65 was the
65
budgeted
is what
amount.
was
Gotcha,
budgeted.
okay. So that's $14.30 a square foot.
It may rain for another 2 months, we won't have to worry about it.
Any other questions about the City Hall roof replacement? Going on to number 2, the water leak detection services.
Okay, this is gonna be a yearly thing. This is a 3-year bid. As you can see, the prices were a little different. Richards Leak Management, though, is gonna include their report, so we don't have to pay extra for the report. They're gonna include the report, and Michael and them have worked with them, so I really think that that's something that we need to award for the next 3 years, because it is something that they do yearly, is the leak detection for our water system.
They found a lot of leaks in the past.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you.
Moving on to B, authorize the fire department to apply for a Homeland Security grant. Chief Clark, would you like to come up here and talk about this 100% grant?
This is something that I come to you every year concerning some type of different equipment for a grant from Homeland Security. This year, we're requesting some technical rescue equipment. It's actually personal protective equipment for personnel, such as steel-toed boots. They're backpacks that have camelbacks in them for long-term events, and then also helmets. We have on a joint venture with Murfreesboro and the county fire to provide technical rescue. We've kind of combined our service somewhat. They came to us during our tower rescue recently to add any support that we needed during that event. And that's what that particular group will do, is we kind of mix and mingle amongst ourselves to help and provide the best service we can across the county, not only here in Laverne, but also in the whole county. So it definitely benefited the other day. I'd like to say that our personnel did it. They made that rescue, and they were here for backup in the event that we needed it.
Any questions about this grant?
Well, that rescue actually made national news.
It's been all over the nation.
Yeah, it was on Fox and Friends, and CNN. So,
Thank you, Chief. Moving on to C, approve a professional services agreement with Reagan Smith Associates Incorporated for the design of the dog park. This is a agreement. It's not to exceed $25,000, and the location that's being looked at for this is 377 Stones River Road. Any questions about this?
will this be used with the grant that we got?
This will be, yes, this will be used with that grant money
So,
that was awarded. Moving on to D, authorize the mayor to request a donation of real property from Rutherford County. This came up in a unique little way where Commissioner Gammon and I were speaking, and then Mayor Kittredge came up, and they have some property, approximately 1.5 acres, that is right on East near Schreibman, adjacent to the property that that the board is authorized to purchase, and that they're not using. So we spoke, and they would be willing to donate this to the city. So it was recommended that we submit an official letter requesting that, and that's what this is. Any questions? Moving on to E, approved proposal for engineering services from Griggs and Maloney for a water system hydraulic model update and district metered area planning assistance. Jamie?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Aldermen. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and present both of these proposals. This first one is, as you mentioned, for updating your hydraulic model and for planning assistance to determine district metered areas for the city throughout your existing primary pressure zones. The original hydraulic model was developed in the year 2000. It's been updated periodically, pretty minor updates through the years. Most of that prior to 2010. In the last several years, you've had quite a bit of growth. There have been several segments of larger water transmission mains that have been through phases to increase your line sizes from the plant. The final portion of that is the 24 that's in progress now. With all the growth, upsizing of lines, the model dynamics have changed. Your system has changed, so just getting everything aligned with your current real data to bring that up to your current baseline and then be able to help you project for the future, plan, prioritize your future needs to keep up with your growth and development. The district metered areas portion of that is looking, you have 5 primary pressure zones. 2 of them are very large. When you are trying to determine water loss areas, it's difficult to do that currently with having these smaller pressure areas within zones within your pressure zones. It helps kind of determine, okay, this is where the water's going or it's not, and determine if you have leaks or just where you're potentially seeing water loss. So that's that first proposal. Do you guys have any questions?
This was something that was discussed last year with the planning retreat and budget, updating of the hydraulic model and DMA. So this is something that's been a work in progress.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to F, the approved proposal for engineering services with Griggs and Maloney for a water system master plan update.
This goes hand in hand really with the previous proposal. The similar timeline, the original master plan was put out in 2000. Like the model, as the population changes, a lot of that data in there has become obsolete, outdated. A lot of the recommendations made in the original, those projects have been implemented up to speed. Now future needs are, you can see them on the horizon, so that's really taking the data from the model, helping get a timeline of what the priority is going to be based on expected growth, and just having a guide for you guys to kind of be able to plan and budget for future years out and have current data to work off of.
And again, updating that master plan was discussed with the budget last year.
Would this keep us in that capacity level that the state's requiring that we meet at that 80 percentile? Does this grow that, get us to the next level, or does this put us up to that level with the growth?
You currently, your plant can do the maximum that you can withdraw out of Percy Priest Lake, and the 24 project
Okay.
will bring that up for that capacity. So this is more of a model that shows, and we can kind of verify. I'll be working with your water distribution guys to calibrate the model and make sure what we're putting out is true data compared to what
Great.
we're
Wonderful.
seeing.
Thank
So,
you.
all right, thank you all.
Thank you, Jamie.
I have a question, Mayor. Is it possible to remove the consent agenda, from the consent agenda items, the bid for the City Hall roof and the approval, the discussion for the donation of the land from the county, and put it as an agenda item and take it out of the consent agenda, please?
We can do that.
Thank you.
We'll have those as part of new business. Moving on to new business, first reading, ordinance 2020-03, an ordinance to amend the City of Laverne zoning ordinance by changing the official zoning map for tax map 14, parcels 36, 36.01, 36.02, and tax map 14F, Group A, parcel 1.01 consisting of approximately 9.07 acres located adjacent to 301 Bill Stewart Boulevard from a R1 low-density residential zoning district to a PDR, planned density residential zoning district, with an R3 high-density residential-based zoning district. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on January 28, 2020. There will be a public hearing held on Thursday, March 5th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. This is the property over by Fire Station 3, and it is being proposed as a PDR for 55-plus living. Any questions about this?
Is there no one here we can ask questions to?
Absolutely. Mr. Wamble, would you please come up and state your name and address for the record?
I'm Danny Womble. I'm the design engineer for this project, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
I believe we spoke on the phone in the very beginning so that you could come to the senior center. When you came to that meeting, I wasn't allowed to be there because it may come to this, so me and the mayor both could not be there. So I'd read in your thing here that you talked about coming to the center, and some of the seniors asked questions and had some concerns and things like that. And I tried to talk with some of them the other day about this, and they were kind of confused. So they were kind enough to give me a list of questions to ask.
Okay, great.
Minute as they may sound. First and foremost, it talked a little bit about what they wanted about income-based. Is it going to be income-based?
No, this is going to be market units, and it'll be driven by whatever the market forces are for the rental rates of the units. The units would be, should this board approve this rezoning, they would be restricted by age, and they will be one-story units, and they can only be used for 55-plus citizens. It would not be for any assisted living. It's all independent living. Would not be for any children or any adults under the age of 55. And it would be a rental unit because we learned in that meeting, which was September the 4th of last year, that most of these citizens are living on fixed income. Most of them are retired. Most of them don't have jobs. So it's difficult then to secure loans when you're in that situation. So we learned from them that they need to be rental units, but they will be market rent units. And what we've looked at is some projects in Smyrna, particularly Nancy's Place in Smyrna. And we're kind of patterning the project after Nancy's Place, except we've tried to design it with some upgrades, with more green space, more open park areas, more sidewalks, and things of that nature.
So for an 800 or 900 square foot, one bedroom, 55 living quarters, out in the real world, a 800 or 900 square foot home right now is going for $1,000, $1,200 a month if you're lucky. Is that what you're telling me they're going to be? When you say market value, are you talking like a small one-bedroom apartment like that would be $1,000+?
Well, I don't know what the rents are going to be. I'm just telling you that whatever the market forces would price those units to be, that's the way they'll be priced. They're not going to be subsidized by the government or anybody else. Now, the smaller units, I believe in Nancy's Place, renting for around $850 a unit. Roughly, that looks like about $1 a square foot. We purposely have designed this project with a mix of units. Some are 2 bedrooms, some are 1 bedroom. The smaller units will be around 500 to 600 square feet. The larger units will be around 1,000 square feet. hoping to have a range of pricing of units so that we've got some units that are smaller that are more affordable for people that need a more affordable unit. But I can't commit tonight because we don't know what the construction cost is going to be. We haven't done the final architecture yet, so I can't predict what that final number will be. But it's patterned after Nancy's Place. So hopefully it'll be similar to Nancy's Place. And with having a different range of size of units that Nancy's Place doesn't have, hopefully you're going to get units that have a bigger price range that will fit different people's needs for pricing.
Are you also talking there about an HOA?
We did propose originally that this would be an HOA because originally we thought these would be for sale units. And that's the way we originally designed the project. But after that meeting with the seniors in town, we learned that the majority of the people did not want to purchase a unit. They wanted to be able to rent it. So this would be for rental units. So there would be full-time on-site management that would either be managed by the owner of the development or by a management company that's hired to do it. So if it's not going to be a for sale unit, then there would not be a homeowner association because homeowner associations are people that own units in the development.
And in that rent price, does that include water, electric, gas, anything like that, or is that extra?
Well, we now plan for the water and sewer to be public utilities. So with public utilities, then the utilities would be extra, which would be paid to the city. So the rent would be strictly for the rental of the unit. It would include all of the maintenance requirements for the grounds and the buildings from the management company. All of that would be factored into that rental number. But I would think the water and sewer would not be.
Pet friendly?
You know, that question hasn't come up before. I really don't know. I would think there's no reason for it not to be pet friendly. There would probably be some type of management system set up with rules and deposits for pets. But that question hadn't come up and we haven't thought about that.
I don't mind telling you, when this first came about, I was super excited for senior housing in Laverne because we've got some seniors that are coming to our senior center that don't, they want to live here, but they can't. But they live in Mount Juliet or they live in Smyrna because they have senior housing that is income-based.
Yes, sir.
Are they as nice as what you're proposing? Probably not. But I also know that I'm very well knowledgeable of what a lot of the seniors that we have can afford and can't afford. And I don't mind telling you that I was hoping that you would be able to give me a definitive answer about it being income-based, because it sounds to me like until we approve this as a board, there's not going to be a whole lot more information. And then if we approve it, then we're kind of stepped over that threshold and we can't turn back. So those were just some of the questions that they wanted me to ask you.
I appreciate the questions. I know what you just said is correct because I learned in that meeting that a lot of the people in the meeting told me they lived in Smyrna or in Mount Juliet. And so one of the primary reasons for this project is so people can retire in place here in Laverne. It's in the Lake Forest subdivision, largest subdivision in town. People could, when they reach the retirement age and they want to move into a project like this, they can move into this project should you decide to approve it. and keep their same doctor, their same church, live in the same subdivision, have the same friends in the same community that they've had. And that was our main purpose for doing this, because there's a real need for it here in Laverne. So, but at this point, being the engineer and not the developer, I cannot make any commitments on what the rents will be. And what I've been told is whatever the market forces demand based on the cost and what's available in this type of housing in Mount Juliet and in Smyrna, it'll be comparable price based on the market.
I understand. I appreciate your answers. I guess to put it in real good terms that I can understand is, to me, this is, I was just looking for something different for our seniors. To me, from what you're proposing with the, at that point, market rent, that is such a wide spectrum of money that this is almost kind of like a place that people would retire and move to Florida for, you know. I was just hoping for more of a based on income type thing, because the majority of the seniors that I personally know, you know, they're under poverty level. They're $15,000 a year type, and at that time, especially with the rates with homes as they are now, and rental rates and apartment rates, if they continue to go up, or even if they stall out at what they are today, those, you know, I'd like to hear what prices are, what they're going to rent for, you know, things like that. And I know you can't give me that. So,
Right.
But, you know, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
I can tell you that several years ago, probably 15, 20 years ago, we did the Greek church development on Stones River Road. And that, as far as I know, that's the only other senior housing development in town. And it has a waiting list and is full all the time. So there's a real need here. And
There's probably a need for this as far as the, you know, what it's going, but from the people that I personally know and deal with on a daily basis, you know, I don't see it benefiting them whatsoever.
Well, there was a lot of interest in the meeting, and
I think there was a lot of interest in the meeting because they didn't understand what the questions that you and I just talked about.
well, I apologize if they didn't understand.
That's all right. That's, you know, that's just, it is what it is, but, you know, I just wanted to ask those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. Oh, go ahead, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. How do you ensure that the residents are 55 or above? Like, how do you prevent someone younger from getting a unit?
Two ways. The first thing is it's written into the design booklet and is written into the PDR. So the zoning does not allow anyone to live there that's under 55, because as a permitted use by the zoning, the way this is written, and if you choose to approve it, once it's approved, anybody under 55 living there is violating the use that it's approved for. So the city then has the right to regulate it, but hopefully the city wouldn't have to do that, because there will also be full-time management company that is managing it on a daily basis, and their primary duties will be to make sure that they adhere to these requirements in this design booklet.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Alderman Church.
Mr. Womble, I know the questions that are being asked are direct.
Right.
But the amount of calls that I have received, and I'm sure Alderman know, and the other board members, the history of rezoning in the Lake Forest area has not benefited the city in the past. When we rezone, or previous boards, it's kind of helped create the cluster we have in Lake Forest. You know, when we went to the 0 lot lines, and we went to, so when the rezoning request came up, immediately there was a backlash of questions. What are we doing it for? Well, and so as council, I would go out to the community and I would talk to people and say it's going to be senior housing, senior living. But one of my biggest concerns is it's not going to be an assisted living facility. So if you're aging out in the community and you're leaving one home to another, a lot of people are, this will be their last place on earth, is when they move here. That may be their last place to ever live, before they go to heaven. So during that time, they may need assisted living. When they go from their health, as they get older, their health declines. Is this community going to be in a position to where, well, now you have to have a nurse come over every day or twice a week to help bathe you and help clean your house or whatever, because they're not as functional as they was when they moved in 2 years ago? Will they be moved out of the facility? That's a real big concern when you say there's not assisted living, because if the majority of people that move there are moving there to spend their golden years. And as we all know, as you get older, sometimes you're not able to function on your own. And I find it a little discouraging to have that as a rule. It's almost punishment if you can't take care of yourself, even though you've been here 3 years or 5 years and you paid your rent every day, every month on time, but because your body is not performing as well as it used to. What happens to those people?
Yes, well, I agree with you. That's the way that I think that it would work, is that people will reach the point where they're ready to retire and they want to move into a retirement type home. And so their first need is going to be an independent living type facility, which is what we've designed this for. As they get older and if they have health problems, then they're going to reach the point, as you say, where they're going to have a need for assistance, and it would be then a need to go into an assisted living facility. An assisted living facility is much more expensive, and it's a completely different type design that has to be done to meet those requirements. We designed one. It's just across the creek at Hickory Woods. It's got 400 units in it. The site work's been done. It's got assisted living. It's got independent living. It also has a Alzheimer's memory care section. And that is going to be like luxury living at luxury prices. So there's a real need for all of that. I agree with you here in Laverne. And right now you only have one facility, which we designed many years ago. We got to start somewhere to try to take care of these needs. And it seemed to us that to get something as affordable as possible is to start with the independent living and do a small independent living project like this. Hopefully, if this is approved and built, I think the need is here. It'll fill up immediately. And then hopefully we can do other projects. And hopefully some of these other needs can be met. But this first project can't meet all the needs. The project that we designed right across the creek is trying to do that, but that's a $50 million project. And there's nobody here today in Laverne willing to make that investment to build that type of facility. Hopefully it will come, but I think to get something like that, the city needs to demonstrate that they're willing to give zoning and they're willing to allow projects like this to be approved of some type for the seniors to get something started and then hopefully take care of these other needs with other projects.
Mr. Wumble, I guess I have a statement to make on this. If, living in Lake Forest, if I slip and have a catastrophic fall and I become disabled, Is the builder or anybody gonna be responsible for moving me if I can't take care of myself, living by myself?
Well, I think you're
It's a
primarily.
rhetorical question. It's just a rhetorical
Yeah.
question. The point that I'm trying to make is, if the individual moves in and when they get older, then the option comes in for them to move to an assisted area because it no longer provides the means that they have in this area that they're living in. That's the point that I'm trying to make. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
asking your company or anyone else to add to a development and triple or quadruple the price of it to accommodate for end of life or hospice, that's just not necessary. I just don't see where that would go.
Yeah, I want to clear that up. I didn't ask you to add anything. To go back to Alderman Jones's concerns, my concern was if they get to the point where they need assisted living is defined, any outsource that comes in and assists you.
Well,
Okay, so that's my concern. If a home nurse comes over and helps someone 3 days a week, it's not costing your developer or your management firm a dime. But with your statement, you're saying assisted living isn't going to be allowed. So what's the definition that you guys are saying is assisted living? Is it somebody that comes and helps somebody that's going through chemo during their time, or if it's somebody that's on dialysis, where they come to your house and do the dialysis? That's assisted living. So my concern is not for you to bankroll it, but is it going to be allowed in this community?
and
Let me try to clarify that, and thank you for the follow-up question so that I can clarify it. What I'm saying is the management company and the services provided by the ownership of this project through that management company is going to be for independent living only. In assisted living, you have a restaurant, you have medical services, you have medical staff, you have nurses on staff, and they're providing assistance in that residential unit for that person that's assisting them in their living. They're cooking meals for them and they're feeding them. Those services won't be provided. If a person living in this project is going to have housekeeping, and if they're going to have nurses visiting that they're paying for periodically, then of course that'll be allowed. What I'm speaking to, as we're not going to provide assisted living, is the management company, the ownership of the project will not provide nursing, will not provide food service, will not provide any of those services typically required for the assisted living.
And I think that's the difference is in terminology, because you mentioned home dialysis. Peritoneal dialysis is for independent living people, regardless of their age. So I think it's terminology. What you're referring to as assisted living, encompassing multiple, where a nurse may show up, isn't the medical definition of assisted living facilities. So that this would not be an assisted living facility. This would be independent living, and if someone needs a nurse, peritoneal dialysis, or any other service that they're contracting, they would still be allowed that.
Yeah, that's what my concern was.
So I guess I was completely lost in that conversation then, because I thought what he was trying to ask was who decides when them people are no longer dependent, if they can't, or independent.
Oh, they would make that decision
They would have to
themselves,
make that decision.
or their family would make it for them.
So you're not going to come in and say, you stay in your apartment all the time and we've got to change things. That'll be up to the families.
I wouldn't think that the management company would make those type of judgment calls. That's going to be up to that individual or that individual's family.
And you need to have an MD on staff if you do that.
That's correct, and we would not have an MD on staff.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 7, motion to authorize a lawsuit against Mitchell Whitson for violation of city ordinances. You should have in your packets the information on this. This is in regards to a food trailer that's currently located in front of one of the water meters. They have been cited to city court and have refused to show up. They refuse to relocate it from its current facility so that we can access the actual water meter. So at this point, since they're unwilling to work with codes, the city, or even city court, this would authorize Mr. Cope to take that through Rutherford County Court. Any questions about this?
Would this be something that is with the new ordinance that we passed?
This is in regards to the water meter, not the new ordinance. He blocks a water meter and refuses to move. Any other questions?
Is the property rented or leased?
That I don't know. I don't think he owns it. Randolph, do you know off the top of your head?
Mr. Whitson is the property owner. He does not own the food trailer, but the meter is under the food truck. And Dietz and his team have made several efforts to replace the aging meter. He cannot do so, and we asked him just to move the trailer, that give us the opportunity to put the meter in as it needs to be. Then we'll discuss where the trailer goes from there. Obviously, they need to keep their vendor's license and so forth and so on, but we cross that bridge when we get there. But first and foremost, we'd like to be able to get access to that water meter. Mr. Whitson was given notice to move it and did move it, so we cited him to court. He did not show up in court. Based on history that we've had with other dealings, this is just not going anywhere. It's just going to continue to sit there. And as Michael can tell you, that meter needs to be replaced. It's not metering water correctly as it needs to be. So it's been a long, drawn-out argument.
Have we talked to the property owner?
Mr. Whitson is the property owner.
He's the property owner?
It is not on the food truck. We've talked to the people that own the food truck as well. We initially reached out to them.
Right.
And they kicked it back over to Mr. Whitson as the owner of the property, and here we are. So he refuses to move it. He's indicated to us that he thinks the meter can be changed out without it being moved. He's offered to install the meter, which is not going to happen, but it's just that we need to get access to that meter, and he refuses to make that happen. So based on history, based on the fact that he did not show up here for his municipal court violation,
Just flat refuse.
Evan, is that something we can just have a tow truck move it?
No, sir, not, well, I mean, theoretically, but you wouldn't want to do that. You'd risk getting sued. The action we would take is like what we've taken in other instances where we get a court-ordered injunction requiring him to move. If he elects to ignore it at that point, he can be held in contempt and he could sit in jail until he decides he wants to move it.
Gotcha.
Typically, that happens pretty quickly after that.
Over a food truck.
Any other questions?
Michael, you're going to get to move that you're going to get that meter soon.
What do we do about the water loss until that happens, until the trailer is moved? If we know the water meter is bad, is that included in part of the?
It certainly can be. I'll get with Randolph, and I think when we file suit, we ask for everything that we're entitled to, including that.
Any other questions?
Have we ever had to do this before? I mean,
Not to this extent that I know.
We've had to do injunctions before.
We've had to obtain court-ordered injunctions, and I don't know that we've ever had to hold anybody in contempt before, but most people, when they realize they've been sued on an injunction, they cooperate. When they realize their failure to is to sit in jail until they do.
would it be unethical or something wrong prior to our meeting, prior to us voting on this, a board member run by there and talk to the property owner, say, hey, can we move this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you go through your codes. I don't think city council should be involved in that sort of stuff. You go through your codes department, and
Gotcha.
if they won't respond, I mean, they've been cited at city court.
well, I'll say
Alrighty.
this. I'll say this too. That one of my inspectors was down there, and I know there's of the two that I've had in my department over the course of the last few years are not the kind of persons that's going to go down and threaten anyone, but
Right.
they were, on site asking for the food trailer to please be relocated so that we can get access to the meter politely and professionally. And the food truck trailer owners called Laverne Police Department, to come remove that individual because they claimed that they were being threatening and so on and so on and so on. So we have tried
Right.
diligently, professionally, to ask them to move the food trailer, but they won't do it. Of course, they kicked that back over, like I said, to Mitchell Whitson, who is the property owner, that, hey, we're being, forced to do this by the city. What can you do to help? And of course, Mitchell, he, or Mr. Whitson being the way that he is, we talked to him. I've talked to him on a number of occasions, and he's not gonna move that food truck. He tells me every time I talk to him that I am not moving the food truck, period.
How long has that thing been sitting there?
I have no idea how long it's been there. Alderman know, but I can tell you this. This board adopted an ordinance last summer regarding food trucks, and it became hard to meet those definitions and those terms of this new ordinance. And as it sits now, it would not meet those definitions of this new ordinance. So I think they're fearful that we're using this as a method to get it gone because they don't meet that ordinance.
I mean, will he still be under that ordinance?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, or what I'm saying, if he relocates the food truck on the same property, does he have to comply with a new ordinance, or is he still?
He has to comply to the new ordinance as any other would. It's a temporary license granted to them, or permit use to operate that food truck. One of Mr. Whitson's arguments was that the city approved that food truck, and at some point in time, back many years ago, a couple of years ago, and Bruce may know the dates more readily than I would, but the vendor's permit was granted to them, but it was only good for, was it 6 months?
6 months of the time, and that permit has expired.
That permit has expired. So they would now have to reapply under our current ordinance, and it is like I've said, it's a little bit more stiffer. It's very difficult to meet. And if you look throughout town, food trucks that have been there for quite some time are not there now because they can't meet the requirements of this new ordinance.
All right.
And that's going to be the case in this situation, is that they'll have to reapply as well. They should have already reapplied, but they're stymied in what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. And we've taken them the application, the ordinance that, here, you need to fill this out, get this back to us. We've obviously not received that either. So it's it is what it is, and we are where we are with it. I wish it weren't. I mean, I'd like to not have to deal with things like this, but I mean, I know it's difficult to sit there and say that, yeah, we're going to bring suit against a Laverne property owner or a Laverne citizen, but when you've exhausted every effort you can and gone down every road you can with them, there's nothing left to do. That's why I've given it to Evan, because we've done all we know to do.
I hope in the future that we put as much energy on that mess on Old National Highway as we're doing this.
Well,
food truck.
that's been worked out right now as well.
Good.
They're around Blue Valley.
Yeah.
That's been worked on heavily right now as well.
Wonderful.
And it has already come to court a few times, and it's been extended by this court. But bottom line is, we're going to stay on top of that, just like we are anything else.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions about the motion to authorize a lawsuit? Moving on to number 8, appoint or remove committee and board members. A, Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals. We've got one term vacant, one term that expired on 1/31 of 2020. We are still waiting to hear back from Mr. Rowland, but this is being advertised both on Facebook and on Channel 3. If we do get any applicants, that will be added to the packet, and everyone will be provided a copy of that. B, Historical Preservation Advisory Committee. We've got one term vacant. Again, this is being advertised both on Channel 3 and on Facebook. And if we have any applicants, that will be added to the packet. C, Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board. We've got one term vacant. We have one term expired on December 31st of 2019. We have not heard back from Mr. Dillon, and I actually know him, so I may give him a phone call, Bruce, and see if I can get a hold of him. But we have not received any applications. Again, this is advertised both on Channel 3 and Facebook. And then we have an FYI, Local Emergency Planning Committee. We've got one term vacant, which is the stormwater position, and staff just request that we wait on making an appointment until decisions made regarding the project engineer position. Any questions about the board? Moving on to mayor and alderman comments. Alderman Church.
I just want to make sure that you have those two items removed from the consent agenda. And that's it. Thanks.
Alderman No.
My only comment is, you know, I was fired up about this senior living thing. I wish we had a builder here or other than, you know, Mr. Womble, somebody that we could ask questions to. And Thursday night, can we ask them questions if they show up or something?
Yes, we can bring them up.
So maybe if you can get a builder here, if they like, that's fine. But I'm kind of overprotective of the seniors that we already have here. That's all I got.
Alderman Jones.
I just need clarification on what two items we're supposed to be moving to new business.
Would be
A1 and A2?
A1 and D.
Okay. I just think that, again, as I stated a few minutes ago, we as a board, me in particular, this is my belief, but I think we as a board need to yield to the people that are paid to do it, what they do every day. I mean, as far as going back behind a particular department and to speak with someone about something that's an ongoing matter by one of us, I would highly recommend that you do not do that, because you never know what's going to happen. I have no intentions of going behind the codes department and talking to somebody about a code violation, no more than I have of putting out a fire for the fire department. So I think that we as a board, we're put here and we sit up here and deal with paperwork, and I think that's what we need to deal with, as opposed to going out and putting boots on the ground and getting into that further muddying up the situation. That's also, I would like to say that I was invited to make a presentation for a proclamation that was signed by the mayor to Mr. Charles Frazier. He's an attorney here in the city of Laverne, a estate planning attorney, and he celebrated 10 years of having a business here in Laverne. And I had the chance to speak with him, and he really loves the community, and he loves the placement of the community, and he has enjoyed his entire 10 years, and he's looking forward to another 10. And I would hope that I would be there to congratulate him on that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Brown.
I'd just like to apologize for being a few minutes late to the meeting today. So I apologize to the board and to the residents. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everyone who came out last week to the Veterans Memorial Park playground grand opening. That place was packed. Kids were running everywhere. We even had one get on the merry-go-round a little too fast and get a little stomach sickness, but it was fun for everyone. It was a great time, so thank you to everybody who showed up to that. The community loves it, and it's been packed up there on clear days. I want to remind everybody, uploaded today to the city channel was the State of the City address. Feel free to have a look at that. There's quite a bit of information, hopefully, for the future of the city and where we're at and where we're going. With that, call this meeting adjourned.